She has not worked a day since college and now she is stealing from her own dead mother. That is what my father said. Under oath. To a jury of 9 people who had known him since before I was born. I did not flinch. I took a slow sip of water. Ugh. Lukewarm. Set it down. My name is Elena Vance. I am 41. My father had no idea what was inside the envelope sitting in my attorney's briefcase. I need you to understand what 15 years of silence cost. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you are listening from. My father Robert Vance was not just a man. In Fairfax County he was an institution. 3 decades on the local council. The man whose opinion determined which families were respectable. And I was the daughter who left. Who chose Washington over the family farm. Who sent money without explanation and asked nothing back. To Robert that was suspicious. To me it was necessary. I work in operations analysis. My clients value discretion. Records exist, but not in any database a private investigator can access. For 15 years I accepted their version of me. The ghost. The leech. The daughter who ran and never grew up. I accepted it because the alternative was a breach of national security. But I had not come to this courtroom to be quiet. I had come to let them finish. Then to open the envelope. Robert's attorney Gerald Davis had built a careful case. No LinkedIn. No corporate health plan. No digital footprint. A P.O. box at a UPS store listed as my business address. A report concluding that North Atlantic Logistics Group did not exist. Robert stood at the witness box like a man delivering a sermon rehearsed for years. She is a ghost, he told the jury. Ask anyone in town. Elena hasn't been seen in 15 years. She claims to work for some logistics group but there is no office. No website. Nothing but a blank space where a career should be. I watched Ashley in the gallery. 7 years younger. Designer cardigan. Eyes on her lap. She had swallowed Robert's narrative. The version that came with a larger share of the inheritance. Davis called her to the stand. Elena always had a way of making us feel small, Ashley whispered. After Mom passed I found bank statements. Thousands withdrawn. Signatures that didn't look like Mom's. It broke my heart to realize my sister was using our mother's dementia to fund her life in D.C. The jury looked at me with cold hard eyes. I looked at the back wall. And I waited. Davis turned to me with a smirk that had worked in every county courtroom for 30 years. Miss Vance. Can you provide a single piece of evidence of gainful employment in the last decade? A pay stub. A tax return. Anything that isn't a shadow. I looked at him. Then at Robert. Arms crossed. The look of a man who had already won. I work in operations analysis, I said. My clients value discretion. The records exist. Your lack of access is not my failure. It is your limitation. Robert laughed. Discretion. You were a clerk, Elena. Don't dress up laziness with big words. I felt the phoenix pin against my lapel. He had no idea that while he complained about feed prices at the diner, I was in windowless rooms at Langley making decisions that shifted the borders of nations. He had no idea that the $136,000 that saved his farm in 2018 wasn't luck. It was my combat pay. Funneled through 3 shell companies I built myself. Just so he wouldn't feel the shame of taking money from the daughter he had written off. I said nothing. I looked at him steadily. And waited for Marcus to stand up. Marcus Thorne didn't pace. He didn't perform for the jury. He simply stood up. Opened his briefcase. And placed a single black envelope on the table. Sealed with wax. Embossed with a gold eagle. The seal of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Davis frowned immediately. What is that, he asked. Your Honor, Marcus said, his voice a calm rhythmic bass that silenced every corner of the room. The plaintiff's investigation was thorough by civilian standards. But it was searching for a person who, for reasons of national security, is not permitted to exist in public databases. Since the plaintiff has raised criminal fraud, my client has been granted a limited waiver under Title 10 Section 144. We would like to introduce a verified statement of service, pre-authorized for judicial review. Davis stepped forward, his confidence cracking. That has nothing to do with a trust dispute. It has everything to do with it, Marcus replied. Robert's smirk flickered. Like a bulb in a room that was about to lose power entirely. She's a clerk, Robert said loudly. I've seen her life. I've seen her apartment. She is nobody. Mr. Vance. Judge Miller's voice cut across the room like a blade. Sit down now. But Miller wasn't looking at Robert. He was looking at the silver phoenix pin on my lapel. I had worn that pin for 11 years. It wasn't jewelry. It was a service recognition insignia given only to those who operated in the gray spaces between nations. Miller had been a colonel in the Marine Corps. He had seen that pin in briefing rooms in Baghdad and windowless skiffs in Virginia. He knew exactly what it meant. And for the first time, the judge looked at me not as a defendant, but as a peer. Miller took the envelope. Silver letter opener. Courtroom quiet enough to hear the lights. Miller removed the document. Read it once. Then again. When he looked up, his face was no longer that of a tired county judge. It was the face of an officer. Mr. Davis. You have built a case on the premise that Elena Vance is a ghost. Accused her of fraud. Laziness. Eyes on my father. I have before me a verified statement from the Director of National Intelligence. It confirms Elena Vance holds the rank of Senior Intelligence Service Level 4. For 15 years she has served as Director of Operations for the Central Intelligence Agency. The room didn't just go quiet. It went cold. Robert's jaw dropped. Ashley made a strangled sound. The logistics group you mocked is a Tier 1 cover designation. The blank spaces in her record are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of excellence. She wasn't hiding, Mr. Vance. She was protecting the very world you live in. Miller wasn't finished. Case dismissed with prejudice, he said. Sanctions of $45,200 for legal fees. Mr. Vance, I am awarding $50,000 in damages for defamation to be paid from your share of the estate. Robert's mouth moved. No sound. Davis staring at the floor. Ashley turned away. The alliance they had built collapsed in the time it took Miller to close the folder. Robert finally managed one word. Elena. I stood up. We didn't know, he said. How were we supposed to know? I looked at him. You weren't supposed to know the details, Robert. But you were supposed to know me. You were supposed to know that the daughter who worked 10-hour days on this farm didn't just turn into a leech because she moved to a different city. He had nothing to say to that. Neither did I. I walked out through the heavy oak doors into the marble hallway. The air was different here. I had spent 15 years shrinking myself to fit a story they invented. But here is what I know now. Invisible work is still work. Silent sacrifice is still sacrifice. And the people who called you nothing were only ever speaking about themselves.